Welcome back to the program, everybody. Welcome back to another show. Welcome back to another episode. Good morning or good afternoon to all of my viewers, listeners, and Soul Tribe family. The name of this program is called It's a Conspiracy, but It Ain't No Theory. It's a Conspiracy, but It Ain't No Theory is a nonprofit social service agency suicide prevention campaign, servicing the needs of families and foster children at risk. Lending my voice to help raise awareness by soft publishing a book trilogy called Lucy's Lair. Lucy's Lair is a graphic novel based on true events following my life as a freelance artist. So, of course, a model like myself would have tons of creepy stalkers. It makes perfect sense. This program is intended to help encourage, heal, and empower survivors of cancel culture and rape culture, providing free information and free evidence regarding child abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, electronic harassment, gang stalking, conspiracy, and true organized crimes against humanity, collective and covert. Your company can help by providing funds in a grant or by donating goods and services as I continue delivering this information and evidence to the public and advocating for foster children in need. Matter of factly, if your company does not help, you're just as complicit in crimes against humanity. Thank you in advance for all of your support. On today's episode, I'm going to be discussing gang stalking per usual, hypersimulation theory, psychological operations, psychological warfare, dark psychology, plus surviving the New World Disorder per usual, surviving manufactured chaos, surviving manufactured karma spelled with a C, capital C, surviving, quote, white genocide, an ethnic cleansing, and last but not least and most importantly, surviving the electronic targeting Holocaust. You're welcome for reporting real, raw news. My name is Adrienne Alese. I am a true American hero. I am also the author and creator of a book trilogy called Lucy's Lair, Part 1, 2, and now 3. Can you believe I've soft published 3 books on this specific topic about rape culture and sexual exploitation? Amazing what God has done in my life. Truly incredible stuff. Truly remarkable work. Truly remarkable and incredible, one-off, that's never been done before type of work that I'm doing. World-changing. Truly, truly world-changing art that I've created here. Lucy's Lair is a book trilogy reflecting my life as a survivor of rape culture, child sex trafficking, and psychological gas chambers. On this program, I advocate for women's rights, basic human rights, and the rights of those disabled. I also advocate on behalf of the foster children in the CPS systems, orphans, single mothers, foster mothers, and those less fortunate. Targeted individuals or trafficked victims are predominantly women. 65 to 70% of targeted individuals or trafficked victims, slaves, are white American women or those who identify as such. This makes gang stalking an illegal operation or hate crime that is sexually and politically motivated towards American women and their children. This would also explain why so many single mothers live below the poverty level and are forced into oppressed populations. Makes perfect sense. This program is a dedication to the targeted individual community. Shout out to all of the TIs in the world, because this one here is for you. The objective of the opposition, the enemy, agents of Satan, otherwise known as the counterintelligence program, or COINTELPRO 2.0. You need to know these things, okay? This is the reality of the world that we live in today. The objective of the opposition, or the counterintelligence program. Counterintelligence program. It's in the name, people. So if you're a dumbass, it's because you've chosen to be a dumbass. The objective of the opposition, or the counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO 2.0, is to subvert all of the target's potentiality, to terminate and to punish all supporters and sympathizers, to round down the target's output and audience, to marginalize the target, and to eliminate connections and networking ability. All right, so I'm just going to be picking up right where I left off about 4 months ago on my YouTube channel. Reviewing Chapter 18. Overview of harassment methods used by FBI's COINTELPRO Operation Gladio, Covert Community Recruits, and Stay Behind Armies, or Instruction Manual for Community Gang Stalkers. I just wanted to add that if you Google Gladio, you'll find tons of books and authors that write, professional authors that write books on this topic. All right, so Chapter 18, Part 8, Target's Home. Punishing the target at the target's home is essential for effectiveness of Secret Service operations. If the target were punished in the IP community but was allowed sanctuary in their home, the creation of a, quote, prison without walls would not be complete. One of the very first things the Control Center, CC, will arrange is for homes or apartments or hotels adjacent to the target's home to be occupied by both community-based agents, CBAs, and members in the Electronic Operations Manual. Because operations are carried out 24/7 in shifts, homes and apartments which are leased or owned by staff are not used as dwellings. The lease or deed will bear either an entirely false name or the name of a senior staff member whose actual home will be at a different location. Some adjacent homes or apartments are occupied by neighbors of the target who have offered to cooperate in punishment of the target. The initial contact of neighbors to determine their willingness to cooperate is done by senior staff, and incentives to cooperate are often tendered. Here are some commonly used punishment activities which are carried out both by CBAs and cooperating neighbors of the target. Activities are rotated among the choices, but at least one of them is applied daily. Noise. Noise must be of a type which the general public deems, quote, normal. Remember that the goal is to have the target aware that they are being punished, but not be able to convince anyone else that that is the case. Observe local noise curfews, but plenty of punishment can occur outside noise curfew times. The target must not have easy cause to involve law enforcement. Examples: start leaf blower times precisely when the target attempts to enjoy their yard, or when electronic corp operators cue the CBA, community-based agent, that the target is trying to nap. Loud music from neighboring home. This is an excellent action as it is common. Time it so every time the target opens a window, the music starts. The timing makes the point that it is intentional punishment. Electronic corp operator can apply music in adjacent apartments with exceptionally powerful bass directed at the target's unit. Excessive use of motor vehicles to increase traffic. An example, frequent squealing of tires near target's home. In apartments, frequent drilling into a scrape of wood or masonry held against the target's wall, floors, or ceiling as if, quote, working. Alternatively, hammering, especially effective when cued by EC electronic corp operators that the target is attempting to nap. Tossing golf or tennis balls or basketballs against the target's home when the target is known to be trying to fall asleep. Ideal for cooperating neighborhood children. Frequent use of sirens near the target's home. Many emergency service employees and personnel have a strong sense of community service and willingness to cooperate in this, or by people posing as Jehovah's Witnesses, or just any door-to-door salesmen's. Knocking on the door for frivolous, nonsensical, wrong address reasons, especially effective when the target is in bed or having a meal. Trash. Leave trash in the target's yard frequently, but control center staff will assist in scheduling this so that the target can't quite have a case on which law enforcement will act. Terrifying the target's pet. This requires entry while the target is away from home for an extended period and must be scheduled by control center. Electronic corpse operators can render a dog or cat passive for safe entry of the community-based agents by electromagnetic beam. Wounding or killing the target's pet, rarely used, scheduled when the target has acted in a way so as to deserve special punishment, like divulging the name of a criminally acting secret agent. Killing domestic animals or wildlife and leaving them on the target's doorstep or driveway. Scheduled when the target has acted in a way so as to deserve special punishment. Where the target owns substantial land, noxious activities can be arranged. In one case, a dump, an auto racetrack, and a prison were built adjacent to a target who owned a large farm in an area of natural beauty. While this is rare, it does illustrate commitment to delivering punishment to those, quote, deserving of it. Cooperating police departments can visibly watch the target's home, possibly being parked in front of the home when the target returns repeatedly. Usually the CBAs will be outside when we pull up. Police officers who refuse to take complaint of harassment and sabotage of the target, who they label, quote, disturbed, really are not allowed to make diagnosis, as only medical doctors can do, but may get a raised price for their unlawfulness afterward. Police follow orders by Stay Behind, secret military-led organization created by the CIA after World War II in NATO countries. They give orders in secrecy to police, media, legal system, and judges, etc., thus being above parliaments and governments. Originally, Stay Behind was created with good intentions to fight communism. Today, it is out of control and a new, much bigger Stay Behind 2 is active in America. The Stay Behind logo resembles the NATO logo. In America, Stay Behind was called Gladio 2 and dealt with terrorism secretly throughout the community. It was responsible, for example, for the kidnapping and killing of Jennifer Ofisa. While the blame was pinned on the innocent, it was cleared of any conspiracy charges to pervert the course of justice. Today, enemies are communists and NATO is the opposition. When the organization ceased to exist, the terror operations also ceased to exist. It is my suspicion and theory that Jerron's family was severely punished and his cousin Jenny was murdered because of what happened at that 7-Eleven. When one of their undercover sleeper cell operatives waited for us to get there for our morning coffee and tried to kidnap me out of the truck that I was sitting in. Their sleeper assassin tried to break into the car while Jerron was inside getting coffee around January or February of 2021 or so. When Jerron came out with the coffee, he seen their sleeper assassin trying to force his way in. I cracked the window just enough to yell for help, and I told him to stop their guy from breaking in. And so Jerron was able to intercept and did his job skillfully and knocked their sleeper assassin out with one hit. One hit. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. One hit and the enemy is done. Even their biggest sleeper cell assassin will get knocked out by my head of security with one hit. Never, ever, ever forget how weak the enemy actually is, and that is why it needs to hide its identity, and that is also why it needs to gang up, because it is not strong alone on its own. Never forget how weak it actually is. I certainly won't. I've been preparing for this moment my entire life. That is exactly why Jerron, him, and not you or some other guy. He was hired by me to do a special, specific job of protecting me, and for the most part has been doing an excellent job. Jennifer passed later that year in a staged car accident on August 1st, 2021, 8/1. Premeditated homicide. It is also my sneaking suspicion and theory that I was supposed to be the one to die that day at the 7-Eleven. I suspect the perp had been waiting some time and was supposed to force entry so that he can joyride the vehicle and wreck it with both of us inside and kill us both, or at the very least, severely injure us both. I am very fortunate to have spiritual loved ones, and I have always been gifted in the sense that I am always having these lucid dreams. I had a dream before all this happened that the Grim Reaper came to collect my soul. It held out its hand in the dream to pull my soul out of my chest right where my bird is at. And my soul, like a bird in a cage, hit my ribs and stayed inside of my chest. And so I woke up because the Grim Reaper was unsuccessful. Just to let everybody know, these are premonitions that I'm having. So that would make me a precog. That's how gifted I actually am. It was after that dream that I had that I started locking the car doors. It was my simple action of outsmarting the enemy by locking the door that kept me safe just long enough for Jerron to come and rescue me. I'm sure if Jerron was given the ultimatum and could only choose to save one, it definitely wouldn't have been me that he chose to save. It was at this time the enemy realized I wasn't an easy target to hit. Like every narcissist, went to regain control of the situation by taking someone else out, using the fear to keep terrorizing me. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, spirit guides. Thank you, angels. Thank you, ancestors. And thank God for preparing me for this death attempt, premeditated homicide. Thank you, Jerron, for protecting me from these horrible criminals. And this is why I started this program. The devil, the enemy, Satan, is very angry and upset and mad because a child of God will always be protected. Spiritually, physically, and otherwise. So I did want to mention that there's so much more evidence that I could show. But I have to cram it all down, condense it all down so that it fits into about an hour YouTube channel, because that's all the storage space that I will be able to work with. And so I've tried to save as much of it as I possibly can, but this isn't the full scope. This isn't the full extent. I've been covering these organized hate crimes against humanity on my YouTube channel for about 2 years now, and I'm still covering this. So there's still newer developments each passing day, new evidence, and new crimes committed with each passing day. And so, of course, a beautiful, successful model like myself has tons of creepy stalkers. Of course, it's just a given. All right, so to continue, Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods Used by FBI's COINTELPRO, Operation Gladio, Covert Community Recruits, and Stay Behind Armies, or Instruction Manual for Community Gang Stalkers. Part 9, Other Tactics. There are other tactics which are not strictly part of the categories discussed so far. Important: community-based agents are strictly forbidden from adding anyone to the list of targets. Target selection is done by senior control center staff or higher levels. Punishment of people who side with and help the target. Friends, family members, and citizens who do not place a high value on community sometimes help targets. There is so much wrong with this part right here. Friends, family members, and citizens who do not place a high value on community sometimes help targets. There is so much wrong with this, I don't even know where to begin to unpack it, so I'm just going to move on. In these very specific cases, control center authorized punishment in the form of individual acts against them is appropriate. The system can arrange for these target sympathizers to be found guilty of crimes or liable for civil actions, for example. This is important for maintenance of the system. Target bank accounts can be disrupted in ways which do not give the target cause to involve law enforcement. Examples: target protection can be changed to, quote, youth account, or an overdraft protection feature can be disabled, or simply steal money from the account. It is called action of, quote, international banking ring, and usually at first the sums are around $50 to $100, which are taken when the target pays small bills. Money is never transferred to the journal subscription or membership in a certain club, like, quote, opposition to government surveillance. Money simply disappears from the bank with help of cooperating employers. Bank accounts are hacked for the payment, and a new bill arrives for the already paid bill by the target, and the receipt of payment is stolen. There is cooperation with military intelligence, stay behind NATO, and foreign intelligence agencies, also against their own population. This is the so-called secret silent war going on. In all secrecy, the mainstream media is lying to cover and conceal crimes against humanity. In a nutshell, government sources are using directed energy weapons and artificial intelligence to terrorize, threaten, intimidate, discredit, silence, torture, and murder dissidents. In addition, security contractors, amongst others, are being hired as military thugs to, quote, gang stalk targets. Quote, inflicting as much pain and suffering as possible without leaving any marks, end quote. Directed energy weapon programs revolutionized this. Exploitation of illusory explanations to conceal directed energy crimes. So part 9 pretty much covers why, more or less, these targets, these victims of this ritual abuse and the scapegoating occult ritual magic, it explains why they're not able to get the family to help. So in any case, to continue, Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods. So this is quite literally the method to their madness to drive somebody insane. And also entrapment. Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods Used by FBI's COINTELPRO, Operation Gladio, Covert Community Recruits, and Stay Behind Armies, or Instruction Manual for Community Gang Stalkers. Appendix 1, Keywords and Phrases from the Organized Gang Stalking Manual. Key words to Chapter 18, Major Operational Components of Organization. Community-Based Agent, CBA. Electronic Corpse, EC, Electronic Operations Manual. Electromagnetic Beam, Control Center, CC, On-Site Supervisor, OSS, Field Operations People, Psychologists, Psychiatrists, Advanced Computer Communication Systems and Computer Programs, Elements of Secret Service Gang Stalking Operations. Surveillance is the foundation of all operations. Operations are, quote, active surveillance type. Passive surveillance, watching the target covertly to obtain information. They hack the device and fish for this information as well. Community-based agents stands for CBA. Every act of punishment is deniable. Advanced technology enables heavy punishment when the target is in their home silently through walls. Electronic Corpse EC members get specialized electronic punishment training. And this electronic harassment is the voice of God technology. Well, it's actually the voice of the devil, because it's perverting pretty much everything. Advanced electronic surveillance, this manual, field operations people, psychologists are the key to finding ways to maximize feelings of stress and hopelessness in the target and degrading the target's health. So when you're going to therapy, they're actually using the information that you give them to run a counter-proliferation targeting program so they can depopulate you. CBAs are given cell phone number for reporting target actions and movement to local control center. The control center always has the target's position monitored. Electronic Corpse EC has through-the-wall surveillance and punishment equipment. On-site supervisor OSS will give hand signals. Computer programs predict exactly when and where a target will be as they move throughout the community. On-site supervisor has special means of receiving instant silent instructions for the center. Intercepts are where CBA's community-based agents appear to, quote, just coincidentally cross paths on foot or by vehicle with the target. The ultimate vehicle intercept is the staged accident, an excellent means of punishment where target has committed serious offense, specifically against secret services, by revealing their criminality to the public. Sabotage lets the target know that they are totally helpless to stop the harassment. Thefts must be authorized by local control center. Sabotage of target's reputation is special operations category done by spreading rumors consisting mainly of lies. The goal is to keep negative information about the target flowing through the community covertly. The organization has many top psychologists and psychiatrists on permanent staff at headquarters. Their job is to design campaigns to destroy the target's life. So when you go to therapy, it's taking the information that you give it and then it's using it as a weapon against you to coerce you into committing suicide. When agents are not able to occupy neighboring apartments, hotels, or houses, Incentives are offered to get neighbors, friends, and community members to cooperate. A lot of times they're cooperating because they're brainwashed. They're silent operatives. The organization has powerful silent support of operations by the justice and psychiatric systems. Sick. Monitoring newspapers for letters to the editor regarding these activities. Monitoring talk radio show appearances by targets. Repair tradespeople can damage items, cars, travel trailers, etc. of targets and overbill targets. Police can frequently pull the target over for frivolous reasons. Punishing the target at the target's home and in the community is essential for effective Secret Service operations to create a, quote, prison without walls. So by the time these targets finally do make it to jail, it's like a vacation. By that time, it's like a vacation. And they'll set you up while you're on the inside, and they'll set you up to make it appear that you were suicidal and that you committed suicide, and they'll have their guys in there that'll actually set you up to be murdered. It's premeditated homicide all the way around, no matter how you try to spin it. Psychological operations are carried out 24/7 in shifts. Control center will arrange for homes or apartments adjacent to the target's home to be occupied by both community-based agents and members in the Electronic Operations Manual, or the Electronic Corps. Electronic Corps, EC operators can render a dog or cat passive for safe entry of the community-based agents by electromagnetic beam. All of this is organized and premeditated crime. Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods used by FBI's COINTELPRO. Operation Gladio, Covert Community Recruits and Stay-Behind Armies, or Instruction Manual for Community Gang Stalkers. Appendix 2. Key terms and equivalencies with terms presented in Manual for Gang Stalkers. Terrorism. The U.S. and its allies will terrorize the civilian population to achieve political objectives. The DoD, Department of Defense, stated, some PSYOP activities, such as terrorism and transnational crime, violate international law. U.S. law and national policy prohibit U.S. military forces or other government agencies from engaging in or supporting such activities. However, since our adversaries employ terrorism and transnational criminal activities against the interests of the United States and its partners, these activities are included as examples of the range of operations and activities that can be conducted as part of information warfare. Fourth generation warfare is a form of political information warfare waged against civilians by a state or other entity. It uses civilians and the military, indeed all of society, to target civilian adversaries. So these targets are literally up against, at war, and up against pretty much everybody in the community, in the society, and in the world. They're setting them up covertly to be harassed, stalked, and blackmailed or exploited by basically the entire world. AKA domestic state enemies, insurgents, extremists, non-state actors, cells of fanatics, citizen terrorists, who value national sovereignty and or pose some perceived threat to the state's interest. So knowing the truth about the world, knowing the truth about what happened to myself and to Geron's family as well, makes me a threat to the state, an enemy of the state. Anyone disseminating information contrary to the state's, quote, national security interests may become an enemy. The goal of the new war is the psychological collapse of the new enemies using a combination of overlapping tactics. Defeating the new enemies involves the synchronized use of non-lethal directed energy weapons, isolation, deprivation, and psyops against individuals and groups, also known as targeted audience and targeted individuals. Fourth generation warfare is more or less synonymous with unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, asymmetric warfare, low intensity conflicts, military operations other than war, and network-centric warfare. This new war involves international interagency cooperation between the military, federal, and local law enforcement, non-governmental organizations, intergovernmental organizations, the civilian population, private voluntary organizations, and private government contractors. This multinational force involving NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and the UN, United Nations, is termed Civilian Military Operations, CMO. TI, targeted individual, insurgents, non-state actors, dissidents, terrorists, asymmetrical threats, irregular threats, potential enemies, etc. Insurgents, those who try to persuade the populace to accept political change. The enemy does not necessarily use violence to promote social change. Their methods may be nonviolent. These are groups of individuals not under government control against the established leadership who will be targeted because of an action they may take or might take in the future. These may include nonviolent protesters who are labeled as terrorists. They may wrap themselves in nationalism. Civilian military operations combines military, federal agencies, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, civilian organizations, and authorities, and the civilian population. Civilian military operations is used in friendly, neutral, or hostile operational areas, including populated civilian areas in which no other military activity is conducted. It is used to deal with domestic threats in the New World War. The controlling faction of these psychological operations and civilian military operation activities includes the military, federal agencies, non-governmental organizations, regional organizations, and international organizations that work with civilian authorities. In the U.S., this means the controlling faction is FEMA, DOJ, Department of Justice, CIA, and other federal agencies, FBI, DHS, etc. Civilians are used as irregular forces. Civilian military operations are interagency and global in nature. In the U.S., they are used as part of Homeland Security. CMOC, Civilian Military Operations Centers, is established in the civilian sector for exchanging ideas. It may be a physical meeting place or a virtual one through online networks. Daily meetings are attended by representatives of the military, non-governmental organizations, the private sector, and local officials. Discussions at these meetings may include any ongoing campaigns against domestic threats in the area of operation. C4ISR is short for Command Control Communications Computer Center that utilizes intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Multiple interacting components of C4ISRs include battle space, monitoring, awareness, understanding, sense-making, command intent, battle space management, synchronization, and information systems. C4ISR centers can be mobile or stationary, virtual, or strictly computer-based. Each military service has its own tactical mobile C4ISR system. The Navy and Marines use ForceNet. The Air Force uses Command Control Constellation, C2 Constellation. The Army uses Land War Net and WinT. Each type of C4ISR system is connected to global information grid. Cognitive radio, a kind of JTRS, or Joint Tactical Radio System, that consists of a computer which has artificial intelligence. So like the Joe Rogans of the universe or the Art Bells, those are actually artificial intelligence. And pretty much every influencer that is state-sponsored is an actor, is state-sponsored actor that you see on YouTube. All these influencers, they're all lying. They're all facilitating an electronic holocaust. CR is an intelligent device that is aware of itself, the needs of the user, and the environment. It can understand and learn. DARPA helped create CRs through programs like Adaptive Cognition Enhanced Radio Teams, ACERT, and Situation-Aware Protocols in Edge Network Technologies, Sapient. Global Information Grid, developed partially by MITRE Corporation, has been called the Department of Defense's Global C4ISR Unit for Net War. It can quickly track down an adversary target anywhere on Earth and attack them via directed energy weapons and other forms of electronic warfare. Global Information Grid uses existing commercial satellites and ground-based systems, as well as Global Information Grid nodes such as aircraft, vehicles, and ships equipped with DR, Joint Tactical Radio System. Global Information Grid is connected to all communication systems used by coalition and allied forces. GWOT, Global War on Terror, use of second, third, fourth, and now fifth generation warfare to achieve political and military objectives of the American Empire and the New World Order. Information operations, also known as cyber war, information warfare, network-centric warfare, net war, NCW, and command and control warfare, C2W. In terms of activities of the internal enemy, official sources suggest the act of simply conveying information alone can be described as information operations. In this case, it is usually waged by people within oppressed populations. In terms of government and military use of IO, information operation, Department of Defense defines IO as the integrated employment of the core capabilities of electronic warfare, computer network operations, psychological operations, military deception, and operations security in concert with specific supporting and relating capabilities to influence, disrupt, corrupt, or usurp adversarial human and automated decision making while protecting our own. Usurp definition: to take a position of power or importance illegally and by force. Information warfare is any action to deny, exploit, corrupt, or destroy the enemy's information and its functions, protecting ourselves against those actions and exploiting our own military information functions. This new war is fought for political purposes and revolves around the issue of gaining the support and influence of the population. Information warfare, according to the U.S. military and defense contractors. The quote, new enemy use computers, the internet, fax machines, cell phones, and public media to advance their objectives. They use, quote, information operations to influence state forces with the population. Various publications term the act of transmitting information, quote, net war, quote, information operations, quote, information warfare, quote, information attacks, etc. The target of information warfare then is the human mind. The battle remains the battle for the mind. What all this means is that the new war is an information war, a war on consciousness. Information warfare, infrasonic and ultrasonic weapons, infrasonic and ultrasonic generators, also called emitters, and VLF for very low frequency. Very low frequency modulators are weaponized technological devices and biological instruments which send acoustic and other pulses or very low frequencies to a general area or specific person. Military uses infrasonic generators which operate on its civilian population using the squawk box. This directional weapon could target specific individuals by producing an audible sound or electromagnetic beam of concentrated very low frequency and extremely low frequency directed energy when it coupled with the eyes or ears. In early 1990s, Russia developed a 10 hertz very low frequency modulator adjustable up to lethal levels, capable of targeting individuals over hundreds of meters, causing pain, nausea, and vomiting. As far back as 1997, the U.S. Department of Defense has been using very low-frequency generators in the infrasound and ultrasound ranges, which cause the same effects. Very low frequency and extremely low frequency weapons can target the brain, causing changes in brain chemistry which influence thoughts and emotions. Particular frequencies and modulations will trigger precise chemical reactions in the brain, which produce specific emotions in the targeted individual. Infrasound occurs within extremely low frequency range from a few hertz up to about 20 hertz, which is the lowest limit of human hearing. From 1 to 250 hertz, the pain damage threshold seems to increase with frequency as well as power. Frequency determines what kind of damage occurs, whereas power determines how much damage occurs. Infrasound easily passes through buildings and travels great distances. Natural examples include avalanches, earthquakes, volcanoes, and waterfalls. An electronic example would be a device that makes noise like a cell phone or subwoofer. Infrasound is thought to be superior to ultrasound because it retains its frequency when it hits the body. From about 100 to 140 decibels, infrasound causes a variety of biological symptoms. Effects include fatigue, pressure in the ears, visual blurring, drowsiness, imbalance, disorientation, vibration of internal organs, severe intestinal pain, nausea, and vomiting. Higher power levels can liquefy bowels and resonate internal organs to death. So they have a death ray. It can also cause feelings of pressure in the chest, choking, irregular breathing patterns, and respiratory incapacitation. High-powered low frequency from very low frequency and extremely low frequency modulators causes fatigue, blurred vision, bowel spasms, pain or damage to internal organs, feeling of fullness in the chest cavity, chest wall vibration, difficulty breathing, difficulty swallowing, choking, and respiratory impairment. Psychological effects include loss of concentration, disgust, apathy, sadness, depression, fear, anxiety, and panic attacks. Microwave hearing, aka synthetic telepathy, voice of God, and V2K. Existing very low frequency and extremely low frequency radar units can be modified to transmit a beam of pulsed microwave energy into a person's skull, which includes visual effects, sounds, noises, ticks, sirens, alarms, bells, buzzes, hisses, signs, lights, messages, knocks, chirps, voices, and words, etc. The frequencies originate from outside, above, or just behind the mind, the head, and are transmitted to the brain via bone conduction thermal expansion. Bone conduction is another pathway for sound transmission in humans and other mammals. It can be used with or without external noise. It can be applied from hundreds of meters away from a target using man-portable transmitters. The transmitters use pulse-modulated waves. The transmitters use pulse-modulated waves at extremely low average power levels. Correct modulation of microwave energy can result in wireless and receiverless transmission of communications. Non-lethal weapons have also been called non-injurious disabling measures, immobilizers, strategic immobilizers, discriminate force, less than lethal, pre-lethal, mission kill, new age weapons, soft kill weapons, slow kill weapons, silent kill weapons, limited effects technology, neutralizing technology, reduced lethality weapons, low collateral damage weaponry, etc. They include biological and chemical warfare, directed energy weapons, communications warfare, information warfare, and psychological operations. Other types include computer attacks and weather modification. Non-lethal weapons are to be used in combination. The Council on Foreign Relations states, these weapons must be deployed coherently in synergistic coordination with information and psychological warfare technologies, end quote. Similarly, NATO in their 2004 and 2006 reports, quote, non-lethal weapons and future peace enforcement operations, and, quote, human effects of non-lethal technologies, indicates that non-lethal weapons should be used in combination to increase their effectiveness. The U.S. military states that the goal is to overwhelm the target by attacking all 5 senses plus motor and cognitive functions. Neuroimaging devices, remote neural monitoring, and remote neural manipulation. Non-lethal weapons have also been called non-injurious, disabling measures, immobilizers, strategic immobilizers, discriminate force, less than lethal, pre-lethal, mission kill, new age weapons, soft kill weapons, slow kill weapons, silent kill weapons, limited effects technology, neutralizing technology, reduced lethality weapons, low collateral damage weaponry, etc. The Department of Defense, DoD, defines them as, quote, weapons that are explicitly designed and primarily employed so as to incapacitate personnel or material while minimizing fatalities, permanent injury to personnel, and undesired damage to property and the environment. Non-lethal weapons employ means other than gross physical destruction to prevent the target from functioning, end quote. They include biological and chemical warfare, directed energy weapons, communications warfare, information warfare, and psychological operations. PO, peace operations, the new war, 4GW, IR, UW, etc. Also known as, quote, peacekeeping operations by the UN, are international interagency missions to maintain conflict, disturb peace, and form a legitimate government. Most are run by DPKO, Department of Peacekeeping Operations of the United Nations. The U.S. Army lists them as a type of military operations other than war. Pol War, political warfare, a worldview warfare, which means the scientific application of terror and propaganda as a way of securing ideological victory over an enemy. PSYOP, psychological operations, a major part of the new war and a core part of CMO, civilian military operations, that is combined with electronic warfare and computer network operations. Planned operations involve synergistic coordination of psychological operation, PSYOP, military deception, MILDIS, operations security, OPSEC, and effects-based operations, EBO. PSYOP units work with the civilian population as irregular forces to attack target audience in the area of operation. Notice how it says attack. PSYOP units work with the civilian population as irregular forces to attack a targeted audience or a targeted individual in the area of operations. PSYOP operators profile targeted audiences and targeted individuals and devise themes to attack their TAs, which include TIs, targeted individuals. Only discussing their target publicly using code names and code words such as Teresa or Tom, like the mouse from Tom and Jerry. The ultimate goal of the psychological operation PSYOP is to modify the behavior of the targeted audience by destroying their will to live, using a relentless attack consisting of painful triggers. A type of audiovisual product known as PSYACT includes agents of action who carry out plays in the presence of the targeted audience. Every single channel of communication the target audience uses for information is interfered with. PSYACT's psychological actions, also known as F2C, are audiovisual products consisting of, quote, agents of action who deliver messages transmitting VLF and ELF to a targeted audience or individual. PSYACT's psychological actions. Agents of action, aka agents of Satan, follow a set of guidelines while, quote, play acting to deliver the sadistic messages. PSYACTs usually utilize multiple people to transmit painful stimuli and messages, subliminal messages. Themes are presented in a performance similar to a play or movie production. A surveillance team camera role player covertly video records as it uses obsessively repetitive traumatic themes and trigger words to set a stage, usually street, storefront, home, or office, with props and mirror traumatic events in a performance for dramatic satire and theater, where actors and actresses are cast, given a script usually containing private information about the target, provoking the target in front of a live audience to stage a live execution, for example, or to shock the target by mocking with the trauma until the victim becomes reactive. The military employs people from theater actor guilds and modeling agencies. SIACs occur throughout the day during work, at home, at rallies to promote rumor campaigns, at group meetings, lectures, theater plays, speeches, dances, banquets, fiestas, festivals, religious activities, talks with individuals during interviews on talk radio shows, and other social activities. Messages may be subtly transmitted or downloaded during these events. Agents of Satan follow general scripts that can be modified as needed. This type of communication includes, quote, key words, trigger words, or trigger phrases spoken by the actors in the presence of the targeted audience or targeted individual, victim. PO, PSYOP, psychological operations. U.S. military states that the ultimate goal of PO is to modify the behavior of the TA/TI by destroying their will. This is brought about by continually inflicting pain. This is accomplished by a relentless campaign used to demoralize the TI that will create perpetual feelings of intense fear and hopelessness. The Department of Defense describes this as an attrition-based approach. Attrition is the product or gradual erosion of the will. The victim of this psychological attrition gradually becomes convinced that nothing she or he can do will yield a satisfactory outcome to any given situation. In PSYOPs, themes are used to transmit painful stimuli, also called triggers, through all his or her channels of communication, which a target audience or a TI, targeted individual, has been sensitized to. Triggers and themes are understood at the strategic, operational, and tactical levels of the campaign, and they are passed to various commanders of particular areas of operation if the target audience moves towards that portion of the battle space. So these targets are literally at war with the entire world. How sad. The triggers are part of a behavior modification program called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which uses anchors and triggers to promote change. An anchor is created when an emotional state is linked to something such as an object, person, sound, smell, place, color, etc. Once the anchor is established, whatever the individual was exposed to during the anchoring process becomes the stimulus trigger that will provoke the emotion or emotional reaction. So basically, PSYOP is simply a series of, quote, stimulus response triggering interactions. PO, PSYOP, or, quote, information operations, military deception, effects-based operations, neocortical warfare, political warfare, and psychological warfare, also known as command and control warfare, C2W, are a major part of the new war and a core part of CMO, civilian military operations, that is combined with EW, electronic warfare, and computer network operations. PSYOPs are a planned process of conveying messages to a target audience to promote certain attitudes, emotions, and behavior. These messages are typically conveyed using a line of persuasion known as a theme. target audience can be a group or an individual. PO involves synergistic coordination of PSYOP, MILDIS, military deception, OPSEC, operations security, and effects-based operations. They are in military operations other than war, civilian military operations, information warfare, unconventional warfare, low-intensity conflict, operations such as counterterrorism and peacekeeping. The Department of Defense and Council on Foreign Relations consider psychological operations and non-lethal weapons, NLW, to be used on civilians. PSYOP units work with the civilian population as irregular forces to attack target audience in the area of operation. PSYOP operators profile targeted audiences and targeted individuals and devise themes to attack their TAs, which include targeted individuals. Ultimate goal of psychological operation is to modify the behavior of the targeted audience by destroying their will using a relentless attack consisting of painful triggers. A type of audiovisual product known as PSYACT includes agents of action, also known as agents of Satan, who carry out plays in the presence of the targeted audience. Every single channel of communication the targeted audience uses for information is interfered with. In, quote, gang stalking and electronic harassment, I just love how they put this in quotations, whoever wrote this. Anyways, in, quote, gang stalking and electronic harassment, they put all of this in quotations because it's top secret and clandestine. What they're doing is actually a crime against humanity. It's illegal. So they put it in quotations as if it's not really happening, as if it's not real, although it is. In, quote, gang stalking and electronic harassment, PSYOP, psychological operation, is synchronized with electronic warfare, with directed energy weapons, computer network operations, and all other instruments of national power. The battle space is your neighborhood, and the war is global. So, like I said, it is literally the entire world against one person. And so really, realistically, with these counter-proliferation targeting programs, they're really only keeping these targets alive so they can test their vaccines on it and other weapons, and for the purpose of weapons testing. It's a lab rat for weapons testing. Early PSYOP research was done by a small private network of think tanks, foundations, and academic institutions which went into partnership with government agencies and kept most of the results of their studies secret. How convenient. Some of the institutions that conducted these studies were known to be subversive. Thus, much of the modern psychological operation was built by a small group of private interests using the social sciences to install a global government. Some of these are the exact same groups promoting the use of PSYOPs on civilians. Radio frequency weapons, rumor campaigns used by PSYOP units to isolate TIs. Primary elements include the source, the rumor, and the receiver repeater, R2. The U.S. Marine Corps states, quote, frightening the population into inactivity is sufficient to achieve our goals, end quote. TPD, Tactical PSYOP Detachment, a team of about 13 personnel with a captain and a staff sergeant. It is comprised of several TPT, Tactical PSYOP teams, and provides tactical PSYOP support to brigade and battalion-sized units in support of special forces. Tactical PSYOP teams conducts mission assessment, determines distribution priorities, and tracks the various products that have been distributed throughout the area of operation. Mission assessment teams maintain contact with each other, and the TPD is in constant communication with other forces such as the TPDD, POTF, or TPT during the entire operation. If you guys don't know what this means, I suggest doing a quick Google search because this is already so long. I don't have time to give you the definition of this at this very moment. So if you want to know what all of this stands for, just Google it. So TPT, Tactical PSYOP Team, is a small group including a team leader, his assistant, and PSYOP specialist. Computer network operations, also known as network ops or NW ops, or network operations, NetOps, are information warfare attacks used to deny, deceive, degrade, and disrupt networks and computers used by the enemy. So that would be each and every single one of us. So that means all of our computers and technological devices are compromised. But I've already provided evidence of that, so there's really no denying that at this point. These are used in conjunction with PSYOPs and electronic warfare. This includes destruction of hardware and software, degrading, attacking, and spoofing, deceiving. So that's like phishing, smishing, all of that spam that you're always consuming. 90% of it is trash, MK Ultra trash bots. It all needs to be reported as spam or electronic harassment, either way. The battle space includes the internet. Internet applications that can convey PSYOP messages include email, websites, and chat rooms. When a TI goes online, they are entering the battle space. Web spoofing allows an attacker to create a copy of the World Wide Web. The Air Force mentioned that an enemy's internet could be spoofed to conceal one of its weather attacks. Quote, spoofing options create virtual weather in the enemy's sensory and information systems, making it more likely for them to make decisions producing results of our choosing rather than theirs, end quote. DEW, directed energy weapons, used to damage or destroy people, equipment, and facilities include microwave, millimeter waves, lasers, bright lights, holographic projections, and acoustic weapons, audible infrasound, and ultrasound. These weapons are silent and traceless. They can cause a variety of effects, including tiredness, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, convulsions, epileptic seizures, temporary paralysis, vibration of internal organs, cooking of organs, cataracts, burning sensation on the skin, hypothermia, heating of body, headaches, loss of short-term memory, interruption of cognitive processes, cardiac arrest, and cancer. These weapons can easily pass through most unshielded structures. In their quote, electronic warfare publication, the Department of Defense defines directed energy weapon as, quote, directed energy is an umbrella term covering technologies that produce a beam of concentrated electromagnetic energy or atomic or subatomic particles, end quote. A directed energy weapon is a system using directed energy primarily as a direct means to damage or destroy adversary equipment, facilities, and personnel. Directed energy warfare is military action involving the use of directed energy weapons, devices, and countermeasures to either cause direct damage or destruction of adversary equipment, facilities, and personnel, or to determine, exploit, reduce, or prevent hostile use of the EMS emergency medical system through damage, destruction, and disruption. DEW, directed energy weapons, include microwaves, lasers, bright lights, holographic projections, and acoustics. The two basic types of DEW's directed energy weapons include microwaves and lasers. Both are part of the electromagnetic spectrum. The two main types of microwave weapons are millimeter wave devices, such as the active denial system, ADS, and the electromagnetic bomb, or E-bomb, which is the emission of a non-nuclear electromagnetic explosion or pulse. Directed energy weapon travel at the speed of light, are surgically accurate, can operate in all weather, are scalable and silent and invisible, offering plausible deniability. Their energy can pass through walls at distances of hundreds of meters, 2 miles, and have long distance projection. These weapons are mounted on platforms which can be aircraft, vehicle, suitcase, radio, ship, missile, etc. Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods Used by FBI's COINTELPRO, Operation Gladio, Covert Community Recruits, and Stay Behind Armies, or Instruction Manual for Community Gang Stalkers. Appendix 3, the European Parliament Resolution on Operation Gladio, November 22, 1990. On November 22, 1990, the European Parliament passed a resolution on Operation Gladio, Joint Resolution A. Having regard to the revelation by several European governments of the existence for over 40 years of a clandestine parallel intelligence and armed operations organization in several member states of the community. B. Whereas for over 40 years this organization has escaped all democratic controls and has been run by the secret services of the states concerned in collaboration with NATO. National Atlantic Treaty Organization. That's what NATO stands for. Go ahead and Google that. C. Fearing the danger that such clandestine network may have interfered illegally in the internal political affairs of member states or may still do so. D. wherein certain member states, military secret services, or uncontrolled branches thereof were involved in serious cases of terrorism and crime as evidenced by various judicial inquiries. E. Whereas these organizations operated and continue to operate completely outside the law since they are not subject to any parliamentary control, and frequently those holding the highest government and constitutional posts are kept in the dark as to these matters. F. Whereas the various, quote, Gladio organizations have at their disposal independent arsenals and military resources which give them an unknown strike potential, thereby jeopardizing the democratic structures of the countries in which they are operating or have been operating. G. Greatly concerned at the existence of such decision-making and operational bodies which are not subject to any form of democratic control and are of a completely clandestine nature, at a time when greater community cooperation in the field of security is a constant subject of discussion. 1. Condemns the clandestine creation of manipulative and operational networks and calls for full investigation into the nature, structure, aims, and all other aspects of the clandestine organizations or any other splinter group, their use of illegal interference in the international political affairs of the countries concerned, the problem of terrorism in Europe, and the possible collusion of the secret services of member states or third countries. 2. Protests vigorously at the assumption by certain U.S. military personnel at SHAPE and in NATO of the right to encourage the establishment in Europe of a clandestine intelligence and operation network. 3. Calls on the governments of the member states to dismantle all clandestine military and paramilitary networks. 4. Calls on the judiciaries of countries in which the presence of such military organizations has been ascertained to elucidate fully their composition and modus operandi, and to clarify any action they may have taken to destabilize the democratic structure of the member states. 5. Request all the member states to take the necessary measures, if necessary, by establishing parliamentary committee of inquiry to draw up a complete list of organizations active in this field, and at the same time monitor their links with the respective state intelligence services and their links, if any, with terrorist action groups and or other illegal practices. 6. Calls on the Council of Ministers to provide full information on the activities of the secret intelligence and operational services. 7. Calls on its competent committee to consider holding a hearing in order to clarify the role and impact of the, quote, Gladio organization and any similar bodies. 8. Instructs its president to forward this resolution to the Commission, the Council, the Secretary General of NATO, the governments of the member states, and the United States government. End quote. Chapter 18, Overview of Harassment Methods Used by FBI's COINTELPRO Counterintelligence Program, Operation Gladio, Covert Community Recruits, and Stay Behind Armies, or, quote, Instruction Manual for Community Gang Stalkers, end quote. Appendix 4, From Total Individual Control Technology by Omnisense, organized stalking and electronic harassment, the new high-tech generation of counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO. So this would be like COINTELPRO on steroids. So this would be the COINTELPRO 2.0, all beefed up and jacked up. In any case, to continue, counter-proliferation programs are intended to subvert the potentials of a target while punishing them with psycho-sadist techniques. The perversions of COINTELPRO are notable. The murderous and sadistic ethos of government counter-proliferation programs echoes that of the Nazis, and this perpetrator network of war criminals are committing sickening acts upon the global population. Modern-day COINTELPRO objectives. These are counter-proliferation-centered programs intended to subvert all progress, to discredit the target. Number 1. To character assassinate the target. To slander the target. To taint the target's image. To misrepresent the target. To suppress the target's monetary success. To suppress the target's good character qualities or people's awareness of positive aspects of the target. For example, if the target is a model and has a very nice body, the target will be sexually exploited and forced to compete with expert porn stars for the love of a partner. That is just one example. To arrange a partner for the target or to mind control the partner of the target. To destroy relationships of the target. To co-opt the target's manifestation. To turn the target into controlled opposition in terms of beliefs and actions. To incriminate the target. To round down the target's output and audience. To marginalize the target. To eliminate connections and networking abilities. To suppress the target's personality. Sanitization of pleasure, emotions, and individuality. To punish the target. To torture the target. To destroy the target's life. To stop a target from procreating, ending a target's bloodline, eugenics. To, drum roll please, suicide the target. To covertly assassinate the target. To cover up the targeting operation. Quote, if they see too much power and originality coming out of someone, they either use it and siphon it, or they undermine it in order to neutralize it. End quote. COINTELPRO 2.0 methodology, covert remote influencing technology. COINTELPRO 2.0 Thought Surveillance Neural AI Net for Psyche Profiling. COINTELPRO 2.0 Directed Energy Weapon Mind Control Network for Counter-Proliferation Targeting. AI-based retrocausation. Extensive international neural monitoring programs can calculate a target's potentials before the target is aware of them. Gang stalking, organized stalking, trauma-based mind control, no-touch torture, character assassination, slander via proxies, proxy wars, technological illusions, psyops, and misdirection, electromagnetic mind control aimed at discrediting the target when spoken, mind control of people who provide opportunities for the target, use of family against the target, in example, mind control of family, use of pharmaceutical drugs against a target, to orchestrate the detaining of the target in a psych ward. V2K, voice to school, to get a target diagnosed or misdiagnosed as a, quote, paranoid schizophrenic. Exaggerated, warped, and untrue slander about the target is proliferated. Technology playing devil's advocate via intrusive or implanted thoughts to get a target in trouble. So there is an entire psychological operation and an agenda to incriminate the target. Advice for COINTELPRO targets: stay lawful. Use of ego against a target. Weaponized mind control against a target. Coercing of a target into appearing overly paranoid. An example, an objective of stalking. Specific technological control of a target's body language or vocal tone. An example, to generate mistrust. Total individual control technology is used as a tactic to take away a citizen's rights through faulty mental illness diagnosis. Medical malfeasance. Outlandish black project technology experiences intended to discredit when spoken. Use of electronic control grid to mind control misfortunes for a target. Synthetic social phobias. Synthetic social anxiety. An example, public speaker related suppression. Suppression of whatever platform the target is talented in. For example, music production or software design. To dehumanize a target via electromagnetic neuroscience. Severe targets are sanitized of pleasure, emotions, and personality. Synthetic suicide programming. Technologically enabling serial killers with a taste for revolutionaries and activists. Electronic targeting holocaust.